Good evening, and welcome to the Night Owl. If this is your first time tuning in, then welcome. If you're a frequent visitor, then it's always good to have you. Tonight's episode may feature content that may not be suitable for all audience members, so listeners' discretion is advised. If you like what you're listening to, head on over to iTunes, leave a comment, review, subscribe. It all goes a long way. We all have our own field to tend to, some larger than others. It's hard to keep an eye on what's exactly going on in the fields at any given time. Lock your doors, check your windows, and get comfortable, because you won't be sleeping tonight. I give you hide and seek. We grew up on a huge lot of land. It was in the Midwest, and no, we weren't well off or anything like that. It was a farm, and my parents made sure my brothers and sisters, along with myself, made our contribution. It's probably a good thing, and I think intentional they had so many of us. The farm was huge, but neighbors was non-existent. So it was just me, my 6 siblings, my dog Rocky, and my parents. Our household was like a farm, honestly. 2 of my oldest siblings were twins and in their early teens. Meanwhile, the rest of us barely hit 10 years old. But age didn't matter. We had to grow up pretty fast, just to be able to tend to the things on the farm. My brother would always take me with him to tend to the scarecrows. I don't remember them being as creepy as their reputation. I guess because I grew up around them, it didn't really bother me. We didn't have television or anything like that, so we had to get really creative. And honestly, between 7 of us, it wasn't that hard. But man, did my parents get tired of fixing things that none of us broke. Apparently. We played in the fields a lot. The cornfields, the place was like a maze, so hide and seek was a game that never really got old. Sometimes we'd just give up while playing. Meanwhile, one of us was left hiding because we forgot. My folks weren't pleased about that, so we'd all have to go back out and find whoever together. I will say the farm changed a little bit at night. Things just looked different, sounded different. We loved playing in the rain, and splashing around and just getting dirty was a kid's dream and a parent's nightmare 7 times over. I'll never forget this one day. My parents were going into town. It usually took about an hour to get there, but since it was thunderstorms and the rain was crazy, this particular day it was going to take a little longer. My older siblings were responsible for us, and we were not to go out into the fields in this weather. We could play around the house, but no going further. We knew not to cross that line when my parents were going to town. We had the entire house to ourselves anyway, so we could utilize that. We'd start with playing house, my sister's idea. Then we'd move on to zombie soldiers, my brother's idea. Finally, it came down to hide and seek. We played around the house since it was all access. It was large enough to find some good spots, too. Some of us actually braved the weather to hide outside around the house, but that was it. The rain was coming down hard. The thunder scared the hell out of us a few times. Once the rain started to get harder, we called off the game. Just came inside, built a fort, and told some stories until my folks returned. My brother, he was the best at it anyway, so we just let him take the reins. Eventually, we all fell asleep. Some time had passed, and my parents came in. And my dad, he was heated. I thought we said no playing in the fields. We didn't, we all proclaimed. We looked at one another, knowing we all, for once, followed the rules. My parents weren't convinced. They weren't convinced because there were muddy footprints from the field that led back to the house. But they stopped at the front door. So there you have it. Tune in next week for another story to keep you up at night. And if you have a story of your own you'd like to be featured on this podcast, email at thebirdbrainpodcast@gmail.com with the subject headline Night Owl. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the Bird Brain Podcast. And if you're on Discord, come hang out in the Podcast Junkie community. Sleep tight.